Nearly 4 years ago, an event occurred which has become legendary in the Bigfoot field. That is the finding of the London tracks near Cottage Grove, Oregon. An elderly gentleman out for an evening constitution with his dog just happened to drive by the site near Cottage Grove and happened to find these footprints, all in the mud near the lake shore. Now, he had happened to see in his neighborhood an unusual looking vehicle which had some decals and a phone number on it. The phone number was for Toby Johnson. The decals were for the Oregon Sasquatch Symposium. So he gave Toby a call. Toby then subsequently gave Cliff Barrickman a call. Cliff Barrickman, of course, from Finding Bigfoot. This is, of course, from his website, cliffbarrickman.com. He obviously knew that Cliff would be interested, which Cliff was. So in turn, somehow Tom Powell and Beth Heikkinen also got the news about this occurrence, and they came to check things out. Cliff got some more help from a few more of his friends, and they subsequently casted over 70 of the 122 footprints that were found at the lake shore. It was a completely overnight process because it took that long to cast all of them and get them to dry. But in the morning they had over 70 casts, which are now in the possession of Cliff Barrickman and Tom Powell. Everyone who looked at the casts seemed to be pretty impressed with them and seemed to be of the impression that this could possibly be real, based on the way the tracks were, based on the way the casts were taken, and just the shape of the footprints in general. However, Cliff, being ever industrious, has done quite a bit of experimentation as to see whether or not these footprints could be real or could they possibly be a hoax. I personally know that in at least April of 2014, Cliff was somewhat on the fence as to whether the tracks were authentic or not. He was kind of taking a pragmatic approach to the subject. As recently as within the past month, I suppose, Cliff has somewhat altered his position on these particular footprints. He thinks there's a possibility that they might be a hoax. And he bases that on the fact that he has been doing some experimentation. As you can see, this particular footprint is from a pair of fake stompers that he made, where he did some experimentation. And if you'll watch, he'll show. It'll show. You can see the comparison. You'll see a comparison here. Toby Johnson actually has a copy of one of the London tracks. You can see right there, pretty good. Looks like a pretty close match. This is the fake on the left, possible fake on the right that Toby has. Now they're going to line them up. Now look at that. Now, Cliff had built a prosthetic which caused that. So, if Cliff Barrickman can build a prosthetic that can cause that kind of toe placement, who's to say that somebody else couldn't do it? Now, please don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to accuse the elderly gentleman of having hoaxed the tracks. But obviously, someone must have put them out there for someone to find. And it would be hard to miss a trackway like that. It really would be. Owning a copy of one of those footprint casts myself, I've always wondered, if this was hoaxed, how was it done? Well, I think possibly Cliff has shown us how it could be done. Doesn't mean it is a hoax, it just means that there's a possibility that it could be a hoax. I think we should stay tuned for further updates and further announcements from Cliff Barrickman and from the others involved in this particular venture. Cliff says he is actually in the process of writing a new research paper on the London Trackway, and his findings subsequently tied to that. As we all saw, he wrote one for the Relict Hominoid Inquiry, which seemed to somewhat cautiously endorse the trackway, but now he seems to have taken the reverse position. The way I see it, there's nothing wrong with reversing your position if new information comes to light on what you may have been incorrect about. That seems to be the case here. Cliff initially thought there was a good possibility that the London tracks were real, but he has since reversed his position based on his experimentation, which shows that there is a possibility that somebody else besides him could have been clever enough to build a prosthetic or two prosthetics to make this trackway. In the 21st century, it's pretty easy to hoax things. A lot of people just don't realize how easy it is to produce a good quality hoax. Of course, for those who are gullible and don't really use what you might call critical thinking and analysis, they might think that something is real and it turns out to be an absolute hoax. And it was easy to hoax these things even in 2012. I have to say that I commend Cliff and I commend the rest of the individuals involved for undertaking the hard work to cast these footprints overnight, even with inclement weather coming in. I also commend Cliff for exposing this as a hoax, if it is a hoax. And I hope that this will be a learning experience for all Bigfooters. Whether these tracks are real or hoax, we continue to press on.